Welcome back, everybody, to episode 19, I believe,
Oh,
of
wow.
the RacePlazaMedia podcast.
Is it really 19?
I think it is 19, yes.
Oh, wow. I've not been keeping count, so you could say any number and I would believe you. Almost any number, but...
I've been keeping count. I just don't know if it's the correct count. So,
okay, fair.
anyways, my name is Milan.
My name is Pia, and we are still siblings.
We're still siblings. And today we are, of course, going to talk about the Formula One race at the Hungaroring, right?
Yeah.
So the Hungarian Grand Prix.
Yes.
And we're going to get right into, I think, the starting grid.
Yes.
No big fuzz.
Yeah. No big fuss. I was just going to say, I didn't remember until we were watching it, that last year's race was so uncomfortable.
Yes, I actually forgot. I remember the track because I've raced it before.
Yeah.
I think I've raced it with the F1 game and then I think on GT7.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
So I was quite familiar with the track. However, then during the race when they brought up how Piastri had his first race win last year there, I was like, wasn't there something that happened? And then I remember, it was just super uncomfortable.
Yeah, because it was the whole situation that Lando was supposed to give the position to Piastri, but then he didn't do it for a really long time. And we just heard the radio message from the team essentially begging him to give the position, but he really didn't reply. Mm-hmm. He ended up swapping positions at the end. I mean, there's a whole situation around it, but I forgot that was this track. Mm-hmm. But I also have to admit, which I came to realize as we watch so many races and we talk about them, I have such short-term memory.
Okay.
When it's about races. You are definitely better. You remember things.
Yeah. When it comes to stuff like this.
When it comes to stuff like this, I think my memory just works maybe differently. Yeah. But I noticed you could ask me things that happened 2 races ago.
Yeah, I think I do have quite a good long-term memory.
Yeah.
But it's of course not flawless. I will say last year, the whole Piastri situation, I mean, we don't have to talk about it because I'm pretty sure we talked about it last year in some video.
Yeah.
It was also all of that happened, which was so unnecessary because if McLaren, the pitting strategy would have just pitted Oscar first, it was his quote unquote right because he was in the primary position or priority position, then you could have avoided all of that, which also gave us a very much a view behind the scenes that there was a lot of there's no designated first.
Yes, there's no number one driver.
No number one, but especially last year it was obviously more Lando.
Yes.
Because Oscar was in his second season last year, right? He has improved, of course, significantly.
I mean, he is still
leading the championship,
yes.
At this point, but it was just so uncomfortable because also I think last year that was Silverstone was also at the same time around that time because what is Silverstone 2 weeks prior to 2 races prior to that, right? And there we had the whole situation with McLaren also fumbling the strategy, which of course gave Lewis his great win.
Yeah.
And what a goodbye gift. Not that McLaren gifted it to him, but what a great thing to have winning at home. Last time with Mercedes, we obviously at the time didn't know it was the last time with Mercedes, but it was very
we knew at that point.
No, it's last time that he would win in a Mercedes.
Yes.
Because it was the middle of the season. It was, of course, expected because the Mercedes wasn't where it needed to be.
Yeah.
Same this year. It's a consistent front car, especially with Russell doing incredible job in it. But yeah.
But anyway, so we'll start off with the starting grid. Going into the Hungarian Grand Prix, we'll start at the back and just go through everybody, and then share some info if we have any info. So last place, I think Yuki ended up starting from the pit lane.
Yeah. Because they made changes in the Parc Femme. They I don't know if they failed an inspection or if they ended up making a change then anyways.
Additional power unit is the reason.
Oh, okay.
That's what the reason was. Yeah.
And then so he started from the pits. Honestly, I don't really have anything else to say about that. I mean, Yuki's just struggling, and I feel really bad for him.
Yeah, and then on mine also during the race, he also had some. I think it was some technical issues with the car. There was something going on, so it's just not coming together yet for him.
But also, if we look at Max, also had a terrible race weekend. So Max starting already pretty far, quote unquote, down, right? is like I think it just shows that the Red Bull is just shitbox right
Yeah.
now.
Oh,
Not
100%.
like it's still like when it performs, it's well, but
Yeah.
to get it there, it's like they said, it's such a thin margin
Yes,
to get it in a
100%.
where it's also drivable and competitive.
Yes. Agreed. So then in 19th, we had Albon with the Williams. Then in 18th, Hülkenberg, which is such a bummer that it's now the second race back-to-back where he's been... I mean, he's... Never mind. Let me take this back because his qualifying are not always as good, but he ends up putting it together on the racetrack.
Yeah, which is like almost gives me flashbacks or like Roberto Ponziani. Like,
Oh, yes.
Like your qualifying is bad, but then you have race pace,
Yes.
right? And especially this weekend, we saw how competitive really the kick was.
Yeah, and then also it's just this qualifying weekend was again so tight. I mean, neither of us had the opportunity to watch it this weekend.
Yeah.
But just based on...
But if you look at the numbers, right?
Exactly. When you look at the numbers, it's just absolutely mind-boggling how... It's just so impressive to see how close they are. Because, I mean, clearly, I say it all the time, they're also incredibly talented. And the cars are different, but it's still so incredibly close.
It is,
You know,
yeah.
it's absolutely cool. Then in 17th, we had Ocon in the Haas. In 16th, we had Pierre Gasly. I think it was also one of the few times that he was out qualified by his teammate.
Well, technically he wasn't, because if you look at the times, he did a 1:15.9 and Colapinto did a 1:16.1.
Oh, so he must have gotten a grid penalty. So never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he probably got a penalty there. But then in 15th, we had Antonelli. Then we had Colapinto, Carlos Sainz in 13th, Hamilton, who was incredibly disappointed and
yeah.
heartbroken
It's like
with
2
him.
weekends back to back now,
Yeah,
right?
but it's also like it's Q2. He went out in Q2. He's
Yeah,
starting
but
in
that's not the
12th.
standard, right?
Of course, and then of course when we get to his teammate later, we'll see the difference. But it's just it hurts my heart so much that he is hurting so much, you know. And he's of course his harshest critic. And when he's already so hard on himself, you know how hard the internet or the outside people will be on him.
Could almost imagine that he hopefully doesn't look at any of this shit because
No,
like it's good shit.
Of course, but still, it's
I do hope that now the like 3 weeks that will be off will
Yeah.
give him time to just like recharge
Yes.
and find like whatever, because clearly there's something wrong with the Ferrari, right?
Yeah.
Even if we're gonna look at his teammate in just a second, like the Ferrari is not where it needs to be. There's a lot of strategy issues. I'll get into that in a little bit later as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of like just issues inside the pit
Yeah,
wall or behind the pit wall.
within the people that are there.
And yeah, we'll get into that a little bit later. But then we have in 11th, Oliver Behrman. In 10th, Isaac Hajar. Then we have Liam Lawson. Almost said Liam Neeson.
We did watch Naked Gun just last night, so that's why.
Then we have in 8th, Max Verstappen. Then very, very exciting, in 7th place, we have Gabriel Bortoleto, qualified in 7th. And then we have the 2 Aston Martins with Lance Stroll.
Which I think is a very big surprise.
In 6th, and then Fernando Alonso in P5. I think Lance said in his post-race interview, we really need, this is a big learning opportunity because we don't know where we're so much better this weekend compared to last.
Yes.
And which is like, it's great that you're better, but you also need to know why,
Exactly,
right?
100%.
Then in 4th place, we have George Russell. And 3rd, we have Lando Norris. In 2nd, surprisingly, Oscar Piastri. That we have 2 McLarens in the top 3, but none of them on the top step because we have the one and only Mr. Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari who made it onto the pole.
Yes, very surprising.
Very surprising.
Yeah.
Very happy about it. But however, it's also then like, because I get it. Like if you're starting in P1, you obviously want to finish in P1.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into that in just a little bit. But it's like, it was almost, not saying that it was meant for disaster, but it's tough.
Yeah. I mean, going into it, of course, I think it was a high ask for the Ferraris to win it just because the McLarens have just been so strong. Their pace has been incredible.
They're also doing really well with tire deck.
Exactly. So like
stuff.
everything kind of is in their favor. So it was already a surprise that Leclerc had outperformed them on a fast lap. But then going into the race, assuming that he would have the pace throughout the whole race was a high expectation. And then also we know Ferrari can be hit or more miss in terms of strategy very often.
Yeah, I think this is definitely something I'm curious about, because I know Ferrari is notorious at this point for it, but is it because like they're known for it, is it even more highlighted? And if we would compare it to other teams, is the scrutiny like, is it like well balanced in a way?
That's
like,
true. I think that's a fair argument.
By no way I'm defending their nonsense. Right?
Yeah.
I'm just asking because, like, I know that the internet specifically, if someone is already down, why don't we keep jumping on to them? And
fair.
on the other hand, I also get it. Like, this is fucking Ferrari, right?
Yeah.
The F1 team, right?
Yeah.
The one that gets at the end of the year extra bonus because they're the only legacy team who have competed in every single season, right? So I get it. But it's kind of like this in between where sometimes I'm like, I don't want to keep harping on the same thing, but it's also like the hope in me just keeps getting crushed, and I'm just like a hopeful person.
I get it, but I think this race, it was a combination of maybe strategy as well as some car related issues, which we'll get into now.
Yeah.
So basically, Hungaroring starts and Leclerc is leading the pack.
Correct. And then I know also that Ferrari came in with a new rear suspension, which apparently gives them over like a one lap, gives them better pace, but over longer, we don't know yet.
Gotcha. And then the Hungaroring is also just tricky in general in terms of overtakes. There's not a lot of overtaking opportunities really
I'm
there.
going to be honest, this race as well as last race, and I think the Hungaroring, if it wasn't for the McLaren situation last year, it wasn't a particularly interesting race.
Yeah.
And as far as I remember, the year before and the year before that, it wasn't that interesting either.
Yeah.
I think this also comes into the whole DRS situation that hopefully next year when we have, what is it called? The move to...
Is it? I don't know. Is it push to overtake?
Push
or
to overtake
like,
is essentially a similar situation what Indy is doing, right? The push to pass. I think maybe when you have that, you don't have these DRS trains that, especially with the cars being so close in performance, then just nothing happens.
Yes.
Because you can really only overtake if you have DRS, but then if everyone else has DRS, I think for... at the beginning of the race, they was behind Alonso all of a sudden up until like P19.
Yeah, so from 5 to 19, essentially.
There was a DRS train, and then like nothing will happen.
Well, yeah, and it's also this thing which we saw a lot during this race is like there is a pace when you're in free air, but then as soon as you get within a second and a half or so, there's even the DRS doesn't help you.
Yeah.
You have to be really close to make the move. And then the one big area where you can make the move is to start finish straight going into turn one. There was a chicane that Max had made a bunch of passes, but some of them were Max-like passes.
Yeah,
on the chicane, but then there was also another incident or turn where he made his not so on moves.
We'll get into that.
Which we'll talk about. But yeah, so that's why going into this weekend, I wasn't expecting the best race.
I wasn't either because I remembered the other ones and I was like, it would be lucky. I think if we would have had a weather situation, it would have made more interesting.
Yes.
Obviously with Spa, we already saw that the FIA is currently not interested in that.
Yeah.
And I understand like this argument is like safety.
Yeah.
I get it. And I know that their drivers actually view this very differently. Whereas I think Sainz and George Russell both agreed with waiting. Whereas Max is like, then we don't need to race in the rain. Then let's just say we will race in the dry, only in the dry. And we don't want that either. And I'm like, I agree with this because also if we consider this the pinnacle of single seater, right? Then figure out your tire issue. Why we can't put on the wet wheels or
tires
sorry it's like I'm like a blank for a second.
But I know the FIA has been working on different ways also outside of the tire situation to create like some like flaps over it to redirect the water so it doesn't go directly behind where the other driver would potentially be. So they're working on it.
Probably visibility is like the big thing,
and that's what I think it is. I think the visibility is definitely the thing where it also gets into the thing where it's like it's really dangerous, especially at the speeds. But there's still a middle point. And then, of course, there's the issue of like if we can't use the wet tires, like what is going on here? But that didn't have anything into play for this weekend. There was no rain this weekend. The temperature was quite unexpected. It was a lot cooler on the track.
Which definitely favored the Mercedes.
Exactly, which was not expected. And yeah, definitely helped the Mercedes. But so starting off the race, Charles Leclerc was able to keep the lead. And Piastri was able to defend his second place. But then after that, there was a little bit of action. Unfortunately, Lando immediately lost about 2 positions to...
George and
Alonso, exactly, which was such a bummer because it was also just like he was in the wrong spot at the wrong time, kind of.
I mean, it's like the commentator said, like the also the like papaya team, so the McLarens were so focused on each other, that it then gave room because essentially they're. And Oscar also said this, I guess they were talking about this, that like I'm not really worried too much about winning. I'm worried about beating my teammate, right? Because it's between the two of them.
Yes.
So I get that. So they were so worried about each other. And in Lando's demise, that meant then Russell, because the first turn, T1 is a right-hander, he was able to, swing around the outside. And then he even said it in his post-race interview. He was able to kind of like, I think, slow down Lando a little bit. So Alonso was even able to make a move.
Yeah.
And then Lando immediately lost 2 positions, which was very surprising.
Yes.
It seems like Lando struggles sometimes with the starts. It's not his, because like last year we saw it, how often he has lost P1 when he, So he, like, his strong suit is definitely like tire preservation and the second half or the like last final stretch of the race. That's really when his strength comes in. But if he can clean this up, I think he would make his life much easier.
Yeah.
Because today, we can already talk about it, like he ended up winning the race, but it was also because the strategy. So I think up until lap 15, they knew how long the tires would do. They were like, okay, until lap 15, we have data. And then anything after, we don't know.
Yes.
And then I think in lap 17, they were like, okay, this is how the tire is going to work. We know now. And that ended up shifting the strategy around in a way that benefited Lando. And his race engineer, they made the right call, right? But if it wasn't for that, if Oscar would have went for the same strategy, then I think Lando, him already losing those positions in the beginning, would have then ended up losing him or costing him the win.
Yeah, exactly. So there was several people that ended up going, they pitted early, so they ended up doing a 2-stop, which was also Charles Leclerc and Oscar Piastri,
and then
George Russell. And George Russell, and then there were some that stayed out really long on their medium tires, or if they started on the hard, they stayed out on those quite long, and they ended up only needing to do a 1-stop, which I think definitely was the beneficial strategy.
Especially due to it being a cooler...
Exactly, temperature. But then Piastri's team decided to pit him early to undercut Leclerc, who was leading at the moment. However, that didn't work out. They weren't able to make the undercut. He ended up coming out behind Leclerc, which was just... I mean, he pitted first, and then when Leclerc had pitted, Leclerc ended up coming out in front of Piastri.
So the undercut never worked.
So the undercut never ended up working, which already hurt Oscar, of course. So he had to pass Leclerc on a track that is very difficult to pass.
Which he didn't.
He
didn't pass him.
He ended up not. But then, of course, because Norris stayed out for a long time, he didn't have to do the second pit stop where he didn't have to lose around 20-ish seconds.
I think 22 or something like that.
It was at 20 22. Was the average, so depending on how your pit went.
Which I think McLaren set the record this for the season. This
1.9.
race 1.9.
Yeah.
Before it was Ferrari with a 2.0. I think McLaren won it last year with a 1.8. So very, very strong performance by their pit.
Yes, yeah, definitely. But yeah, it was just it was a little bit of a bummer. I think the Piastri's team, they kind of I forgot what it's called. When you in German it was like, wenn du zu früh zuckst, you know?
Yeah, wer zuckt, der muss.
Yeah, well, yeah, so if you're like, they just reacted too early or made the move too early, and that just hurt them. Piastri ended up being really close at the end. He ended up crossing the finish line second with 0.698 seconds behind Lando. He was 2 laps behind him. during the last 2 laps, he was trying to make moves to pass him, but with really just that one overtaking area. One time it got quite close because Oscar had also locked up then, but it was never quite close enough because he was going into the start finish line. He was always about 0.7 seconds behind, and it was just not close enough to really make the pass.
To make the pass with DRS, we said you have to be less than 0.6.
Yeah.
In a perfect world, because 0.6 is close, and this really depends then on the. But if you're like half a second out, then you can use the straight to make that DRS overtake. Other than that, it's not on.
Yeah, exactly. So unfortunately, it wasn't on. It was interesting at the end, just trying to see, because it was like about 15 laps, and Oscar had to catch up by like 7 or more seconds. So it was really fun to see that time to go down and see how close he would get. So that was, I think, one of the most interesting parts of the race. Also, just to see how the strategy 1 versus 2 stops would pan out.
I think that, and really also Russell hunting down Charles at the end.
Yes,
there.
yeah.
Because so towards the second half of the race, essentially McLaren faked out Ferrari. They put out their pit people. Sorry, I thought you were giving me.
Yeah, I was giving you a signal.
10 laps to go.
No. It's like 10 minutes to go.
Oh my God, I don't even know. She's just throwing gang symbols at me, and I'm like, I don't know what she's trying to tell me. Anyways, so the second half, they put out the pit crew. And
sorry, I'm still cracking up about it.
It's like, I don't know what you're trying to tell me. We didn't talk about it prior to
No, because we're starting to make some changes to our podcast behind the scenes and like making some changes in general. So we had talked about a time stipulation for the segment. So I was trying to signal. But then, of course, without communicating prior what the signal is, I understand that it's very confusing. I would hope you were able to read it, but clearly that didn't work out.
It's like, what is these gang symbols? Anyways, so the McLaren team put out their pit crew. Then Ferrari was like, okay, we're not going to let them try to do the undercut on us. And then he came in, which is, I think it was lap 40. When he came out, Oscar stayed out, and then Charles all of a sudden had no more pace, and he was just dropping off, ending up him not losing only P1, P2, and P3.
Yeah.
Because George Russell really just, like the Mercedes once again does quite well in the low temperatures. And so it turned out, he said that in the post-race interview, that there was damage to his chassis.
Yeah, exactly.
He was quite angry on the radio because he thought, I think they did a setup change or a change that he didn't agree on, but it turned out it was something else.
Yeah.
At least this is what's being communicated to us. I know that there's already conspiracies online. They're like, no, it was definitely something that Ferrari did. I think that if it was something that Ferrari would have messed up for Charles, I think he would have insinuated it. He would have said like, okay, we'll have to go back and look at this and talk about it. I don't think he would have said like, oh, it was actually something completely else.
Yeah, I think he would have worded it differently.
I don't think he would have covered for Ferrari because he has done that in the past where he was like, no.
Yeah.
You know, they messed it up.
No, I agree. It was just so frustrating because, of course, obviously he's very frustrated.
Yeah.
During the race, obviously he was frustrated for not 100% the correct reasons, but it's still, the frustration is still valid.
Yeah.
Because you start P1, you obviously want to finish P1, but then if you don't finish P1, you want to at least end up on the podium.
Yeah.
And he lost out on all of that, so the frustration is clear, and also just because his pace just like dropped incredibly. So that's just such a heartbreak.
I think the good thing for him was that in P5, you ended up having Fernando Alonso, who was just having like his own race. He was setting the pace. And once again, you know, obviously Alonso, not someone who's particularly easy to overtake, right? And he just set the pace. Immediately, there also started a gap from him to the top 4. And then everyone else, once again, they were on a DRS train. But Alonso was like, I don't care what you guys do. I'm just racing my race. Best Aston Martin finish of the season.
Yes.
In his birthday week.
Yes.
So really, honestly, a great time for Aston Martin and Fernando Alonso.
Yeah.
So
I mean, both Aston Martins. So Alonso ended up 5th. Stroll ended up in 7th. So incredible result for them. Also, I want to give
valuable points.
Yeah,
also.
that for sure. I do want to give a shout out also to Gabby Bortoletto. Him coming in 6th is another great result for him. And then he also had some really close battles with Alonso, which was really fun. Max had worked his way through the grid, but then also not. So he ended up in 9th, which was just such a bummer.
So he lost a position.
He ended up losing a position, yeah. He did have a really close battle with Hamilton, which the FIA or the stewards ended up deciding to review after the race, which we both were commenting.
Even the commentators
exactly were saying like that's a little weird because not that much was happening. So why aren't we not reviewing it now? And it wasn't anywhere close to the end of the race even. It was in the middle of it.
Yeah, with probably 30 laps to go.
Yeah.
And then so both of the drivers were actually called to the stewards. Lewis actually didn't show up. He just a Ferrari representative went on his behalf because usually it's a driver and a representative. And then Max essentially said that he had enough control of the car, and if Lewis would have not taken avoiding action, so choose to go out, he would have left enough space. And then the Ferrari representative, I believe, said that Lewis took I think he didn't. I think they didn't say that he took avoiding action, and that's why he ended up not getting a penalty. I think it is pretty telling that. I think Max also said in an interview Lewis didn't show up because if he really truly cared about it, he would have shown up. I think this also has more to do with Lewis's finishing P12.
Yeah.
If this would have maybe then make or break between him and getting a good position, then Lewis would have probably been like, yo, what the hell?
Yeah.
And I think there was also a reason to, because it was incredibly dangerous.
Yes.
And to say I would have I had enough control of the car and I would have left room is. It's we obviously don't know. You can say this in hindsight, but we don't know.
Of course, but it appeared to be another one of those moves that Max is known for. When he gets a little bit frustrated or desperate to make a pass, he just forces him in, and it's either you yield or we both kind of crash situation.
And it was a high-speed corner, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then typically the other person yields because, of course, they don't want to sacrifice their race for it. So it's a little bit of a shitty situation. And it's also risky because you had mentioned it. He's a 1 penalty point or so away from being banned from a race.
Yeah.
But I mean...
Which also, in a way, and I'm not saying that the FIA is favoring Max because Max has gotten plenty of penalties.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he wouldn't be at 11 points, right?
Yeah.
But it is a thing that, the driver... One driver is 1 point away from a race ban, and then all of a sudden we cannot review this. We need to talk to the drivers about this. It didn't seem to me, especially because we had an incident later on between Gasly and Sainz where Gasly ended up getting a penalty. Because let's be real, not a lot happened during the race.
Yeah.
You weren't investigating or notating. The two other things that happened in the beginning was both kick cars were investigated for false starts. Gabriel was fine. Nico ended up getting a 5-second penalty that he served during his pit stop, one of his pit stops.
His second one, yeah.
So it's, I think this could have ended worse for Max if Lewis would have not been so downtrodden about the whole race, which I get it. You're bro, I don't give a shit at this point.
Yeah, and it's it doesn't give me any more points. I'm not even in the points, so I get it.
Yeah,
it's just...
which that one was already heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I think,
especially also because you had mentioned the fact that he and Piastri are the only drivers who scored points in every single race until today. So now Lewis Hamilton is not part of that.
It's only Piastri
group
that has
Yeah, exactly, which is just such a bummer. So overall it was a little bit of a bummer of a race. I feel like there were certain moments that we didn't get to see during the race.
I don't think they showed the Carlos and Gasly incident, which I think is so interesting because there wasn't not happening enough to not show it.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly my argument. There were some moments that the stewards ended up reviewing or mentioning that we didn't see. Also, I think it took quite a while for us to see Gabby and Nico's start again. And we saw Nico start just one time.
Yeah. Which I thought you could tell that there was maybe some movement.
Yes, but I would have liked to see, because sometimes they show the same clip over and over and
Yeah.
over and over again. And especially at a race like this where not much happens, you could have shown it again, maybe a different angle so we can see it. Because we saw the cockpit angle, but I would have liked to see maybe from the driver that's like diagonally behind him or directly
Exactly.
behind him, just to see.
Kind of how they did it with Lando.
Exactly.
When he got his penalty. I also think it's so interesting, like for example, like Lewis's and Verstappen's incident, right? We saw, I think, 2 replays of it, but then if Max ends up not getting a penalty, like why don't you show us his cam, right? His onboard, right? Because once again, and I'm not saying like, oh, so he gets deservedly a penalty, but it's just like, it's not like anything was really happening for a while. It was people chasing other people and putting good times in, but nothing really happened. And then what I also really kind of didn't like is that towards the end, Oscar and Norris and stuff like that, they also all had to cut through traffic, but we didn't see a lot of those overtakes either. We only saw little bits of it. It seemed like we were always a step behind what was happening. We always missed out on something, and this is like several times this year already where the F1 broadcast is not where I would like it to be. And there's a bunch of times now where we missed out things. Famously, we didn't see Oscar going through the finish line in one of the races. We didn't see, I think, one of Max Verstappen. He did a last lap overtake on Pierre Gasly in one of the races. So it's like stuff like this where I'm like, guys,
I'm really confused why this is happening or why this is so prevalent, I feel like, this season. But nonetheless, congratulations to Norris. He ended up winning the race. He was very excited about it too.
Let's be real, good for the championship.
It's 100% good for the championship. So now looking at the overall driver championship, Oscar Piastri is still leading with 284 points. So 9 points behind him now is Lando Norris. And then in third place with many, many points behind them
is still
Max Verstappen. Yeah. So, I mean, it's clearly, and we've been saying it for a while now, it's clearly the 2 McLarens battling it out amongst each other. So we'll see where this will go. However, I do want to point out that Russell is now getting closer and closer to Max in the overall driver championship. So I think Russell might still have a chance to battle it out, or I think there's a high chance that he will take
depending on how the development of the Red Bull car goes, which apparently this he already confirmed that he's going to be racing at Red Bull in 2026, which will then confirm Russell staying with Mercedes, especially if the rumors are true on how competitive the car is supposed to be next year.
Supposedly.
But I mean, that's what they also said about other cars, and it has turned out to be true before. And we all know that Mercedes is capable of creating a rocket ship.
Yes.
So
I'm so excited. I mean, I am enjoying this season. Some races more than others, of course.
Yeah, we had like a huge fluctuation. We have like something from Silverstone, so exciting, to Spa, which was, and then now the Hungaroring, which were both like, you know.
But then it makes me excited to look forward to next season, just because we have all these changes coming up. Not as much as in terms of drivers on a grid. Granted, we will have a new team, which is also incredibly exciting. But then also just that the car is changing so much, that we have these regulation changes going into next year. So it's something definitely to look forward to. But first, we will look forward to round 15 in the Netherlands.
Yes, I did, however, really quickly before we're going to finish this up, I did wanted to bring up the team standing, because I think that is way more interesting. So, of course, we have McLaren in the front. However, then we have Ferrari in second with 260 points and Mercedes in third with 236 points. So this is something that is pretty close still.
Yes.
It does help that we had both so one Mercedes and one Ferrari this week that didn't. No, actually, Kimi scored 1 point, so I stand corrected. However, I think also now looking at Aston Martin making a huge jump up the leadership, now in 6th place with 52 points.
Yeah.
We have Williams in 5th place with 70 points, and then Sorry, I made this really confusing by doing it. Okay, so in 5th place, we have Williams with 70 points. In 6th place, Aston Martin with 52. Kick Sauber with 51 in 7th. And then Racing Bulls with 45 in 8th. And Haas in 9th place with 35 points. And Alpine in last place with 20 points. So the midfield cars, they're still quite close together. So there's a lot of movement that could still happen.
I definitely agree. Especially this weekend, we had the Aston Martins do really well.
And then the
Kick Sauber. I mean, Bortoletto was in the points again.
Bulls.
And then Racing Bulls, both of the drivers were...
Hajar finished 11th.
Oh, did he finish 11th?
Yeah.
Oh, bummer. But I mean, they're close. At least both drivers are now competitive. I feel like Liam now got used to the car.
I'm very excited for Liam. I really hated what happened at the beginning. So him now really like feeling the car, making it into Q3, scoring points. That's really, really awesome.
And I live for the Racing Bulls social media.
I'm actually not familiar at all with them.
I know you're not, but they do like these very cheesy TikTok or Instagram videos where they also remake a bunch of like trends.
Is it reminiscent of Gabby and Valtteri last year?
Yes, in a way.
No, sorry, Joe and Valtteri.
Joe and Valtteri. Yes, very similar, but like of course they have a different chemistry, Liam and Isaac. But it's very funny, and
also you have two young guys, right, new to the grid, and both of them are characters. I'm obviously we're both big Isaac Hajar fans.
Yes.
My favorite rookie will stay with Kimi. I know that some people were talking online, oh, he's not doing so well, but let's also talk about that. He had 3 DNFs that were not his fault.
Yes, yeah.
And then immediately, it was like, well, he hasn't scored in 3 races, right? And it's like, yeah, well, how could he if twice the car breaks down, and one time he gets hit?
Yeah.
So
it's silly. But yeah, I'm excited. So we have 3 weeks off. I always forget how long August right now is. Yeah,
because we have more weekends.
1, 2, 3 weekends off. And then the last weekend of August, so the 29th through the 31st, will be in Zandvoort in the Netherlands. Which is a long weekend
for people living in America.
Oh, yes.
Labor Day!
Labor Day! So that's happening. So, I mean, obviously we'll have other races coming up. Won't have MotoGP either.
Well, MotoGP is coming back sooner than them, but we're still off, I think, another 2 weeks with MotoGP.
Exactly. So we'll have to see what we'll be watching this upcoming weekend. But you'll find out about that on Thursday when our What to Watch video comes out. So definitely tune in for that. We will start posting that one on Spotify as well. So you are Spotify listeners, or if you just want to listen on the go, what you can watch this upcoming weekend, you'll be able to listen to that as well. Starting this upcoming week. So tune in for that. And I think
that sums up everything we have to say about the race.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, get in the comments, like and subscribe. If you're on Spotify, hit that follow. We will be back, as we said, on Thursday. And thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.